Hi, Kinlen.
Hi, Laurel.
Hi.
How are you?
Great. How are you?
Good.
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 So let's talk a little bit about sacred pathways. I want you to just share with anybody who's watching what you do and tell us all about, sacred pathways.
Yeah, well, my husband and I created Sacred Pathways a few years ago. We really have been deep, our personal journey has been deep into understanding and finding more of the fullness within ourselves, and that's been our pathway. And so, because that's been our chief passion, it has become something that we have wanted to share. And so, we're very focused on helping people to find that part of themselves that really makes them feel like they're flying, like they're singing life, that they're not just kind of going through the paces of life, but that they're really living deeply their soul's journey. And in order to do that, we work in different ways. We work with individual sessions with people in a shamanic tradition. And we also take people into different places. We'll go to indigenous sites and take people completely out of their own industrialized, westernized world and take them into an indigenous world where the view of life is very different. And that's very helpful in sort of creating a space for people where they can get in touch with their indigenous wild selves that may have been squashed a little bit by our culture, and helping them to, step into that joy, step into that freedom, step into that personal power, so that they can really live an authentic, true life that's true for them and that honors them and that is joyful and that is really, a blessing rather than sometimes how our lives can get into difficult places where we're really living from the stress of life.
Mm,
Where Sacred Pathways helps people to really live from the fullness and the beauty of life.
mm. Can you tell us a little bit about, I know you go on journeys around the world. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, we go to different indigenous sites. So Peru is our primary site. We have been going to Peru once to twice a year with groups for the last 10 years. So we have a depth of experience in Peru. We have incredible contacts with the shaman, the native people there in the Cusco area, called the Caro. And we have been working with them and doing ceremony with them and taking people on journeys into that indigenous way of being. And Wake, my husband, has a strong passion for the textiles of the Andes, and so he is very good at helping to people to read different textiles, and if they have textiles of their own, or showing them the energetic meanings that are woven into the textiles those of the Andes. We also go to Mayan sites to Mexico, and we have also gone to the Sami, which are the reindeer people up in the north of Scandinavia. So we've visited up there, and to Ireland and to England and their sacred sites, the Druids, the Celtic ways. So all of the beauty of the indigenous experience is that all over the earth at the same time, people were inhabiting this knowing of the world in a different way, this perception of the whole world is alive, and that all beings, all plants, all things, even stones, have spirit natures. And so in helping ourselves to get in touch with that side of ourself that our culture in the West tends to deny, helps people to come into the fuller sense of the reality of their life and find their own vision and their own passion for what has meaning for them. So they're delightful, joyful journeys. The other thing we have is we have a pretty strong focus on people who have come through some energy training. So maybe it's a shamanic training, maybe it's a Reiki training, maybe it's some other kind of training, but they've done some of that first work, and they're really looking for what's beyond the first levels of work, beyond empowerment and coming into more of a sense of their visioning capabilities, and their hearts are quite often in the place of uh, global thinking and really wanting to help on a global level. So they've done a lot of their personal work, they've come through that, and they're really now have a space in their life to really think on a global level. So that's the work that we do at the Gathering of Shaman, and at the advanced rites types of classes, where we really step into that really highest vibration of our human and divine nature combined together. And we really honor, we are very, very good at honoring each individual person's sacred pathway. We know that each of us has a developmental path that we're on, and there are some things that are similar about that in from our human nature, but that each pathway is individual and each person's needs are individual. And so we focus very much on being present to each person's unique way.
Mm, terrific. Great. Thank you. Let's go right into the interview.
All right. Thanks, Laurel. It's so fun.
Hi, Kinlen.
Hi, Laurel. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. So, I think we're going to talk about a few things, but I wanted to just kind of jump in a place where I think, I don't know, some of our talking recently would be really helpful to share with other people. And one of the things that came up in our conversation that I'd love to just chat a little bit more about is the idea of when we're in relationship, we often get confused about where we're supposed to be getting our needs met, so to speak. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that for me, I know it's been my experience that I've had to work real hard at trying to discern where can I meet my own needs and where do I look to the other for that.
Mm, yeah.
And I think that when we were talking recently, you kind of had an example from your own life where you had kind of a revelation where you realized you were looking to the other to provide something that you really could do for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been about 6 months of work right now with really sensing deeply into that. And what I would say is really transforming what was a um, very deep and quiet or subtle or like not seen codependency with my husband. So we have a very good relationship. We're both really, have done a lot of our own personal work. We're fairly good at taking responsibility for who we are and what we need and things like that. But even so, this summer really pointed out to me um, that I was asking for more than he was able to give. Like I was asking and expecting him on a codependent sort of level, like on an agreement level, um, to make me feel like I was worthy, to um, be so committed to me that I would never feel abandoned. Um, you know, I was really working really hard. One of the ways it showed up was I was working really hard in our business, and then I would be exhausted, but I would be telling him all that I'd done, hoping that he would tell me that I was worthy because I had done all of that. So that's one way that it showed up. Another way was this abandonment issue for me was I wanted him to guarantee, really, it wasn't a conscious request. I really wanted him to guarantee that he would never leave me. And what was interesting about it was that the more I asked him to give that to me in various ways, forms that shows up, the more restrained he felt. And even though he would say, I'm here, I'm with you, this is the best relationship I've ever been in, I couldn't hear it. I couldn't take it in. I couldn't trust it because I couldn't tell it to myself. I couldn't tell myself that I was committed to myself and I wanted him to do that for me. And so I became aware that my need for him to tell me that he wasn't going to abandon me, I wasn't going to be abandoned, couldn't ever really fulfill that within me. I had to find that in myself. And I remember I was like kicking and screaming. I was so mad because it was like, damn it, I've got to do this for myself. I can't, I found this great person. I found this great relationship. And still, the fairy tale isn't true. It doesn't make a happy ending. I've still got to do these things. When they come up, I've got to recognize them, then do them for myself. And so I was, in meditations this summer, working on what was the issue, what was it I was really wanting from him. And as I worked with the worthiness one, it was really interesting because as I began to tell myself, I do a really good job, I'm a hardworking person. I have created, our company, Sacred Pathways, and I've fulfilled so many parts of that. And the more that I could tell myself I was worthy, and even, going beyond the company or the work I was getting done, just simply affirming that I was worthy in my own skin, just being myself, all of a sudden I really had no energy to work very hard. So it was like as I filled that need, as I assured myself, and I could feel it within my own heart, all of a sudden I didn't need to show him I was productive. All of a sudden I could just work on the things that I wanted to work on. And I've been able to give things to my assistant that I would have never given before. I've been able to really build her and train her and accept her amazing capabilities. And so now I'm not working as much as I used to. I'm really working a much more reasonable kind of schedule. And I love what I do. So it's not like I don't want to do it. I love what I do.
Mm.
But I'm no longer trying to create and knowing in him that I'm worthy, that he'll tell me I'm worthy. And this, and the same thing really has been true about feeling, this fear of abandonment that was deep within me. There's the concerns that I'm getting older. I turned 50 this year. Um, and I just, I wanted so badly for him to affirm that. And so I had to look at that, like, what was that about? And it really was about, my commitment to myself, that I really had not made a commitment to myself. I had only made my commitment to life in relationship to him. And and so I really needed to look at and begin to use that language for myself, to turn it inside and say, it's not really about abandonment. The language I needed to use was, I'm committed to myself. That even if, and we had some arguments and tough times this summer, so even if we were to separate, I would remain committed to myself. That I know I would survive, that I know I would find a different kind of work if I needed to, or whatever I needed to do, I would do that. And to come inside like that, it wasn't, it was funny because I would have thought that I would have felt like I was pulling away from him.
Mm.
But in reality, what I was doing was really coming into my own grounded self instead of giving myself away to my partner and becoming really um, dependent on him to provide something he couldn't provide. And so, I released the energetic bonds of him needing to be committed to me. I released the need for him to tell me I was worthy. And I think there was one more thing, but I can't remember what piece of the puzzle it was.
Well, even
And I
those,
began to, yeah, go ahead.
no, I was going to say even those two pieces are so huge. I mean, that sounds like deep personal work. I think about moving into that territory is so much about moving beyond our conditioning and
Mm,
the cultural ways we've been taught to think about marriage and relationship and what we're looking for ultimately. And so that's a big shift in and of itself to do that work in those ways.
it, it, it is. And, old fears and doubts come knocking on the door, and you have to re-engage the remembering of how it is that we move through it. How do we come back into ourselves, into our groundedness, which is really claiming our power?
Mm.
It's really about saying, I am an individual being that is important in just my being. And and I'm committed to myself, and I'm committed to a good life for myself. And it's not dependent on the other person. And then, and I think for men, which this is kind of has come up for me this summer and fall, is that I think men have a similar kind of thing. Like for women, we want to be connected with our partners, but we can get lost in that connection. For men, it's like they want to be individuals. They want to be independent and be able to do whatever they want to do, but they want to be in relationship too. And so, how do they give up? How much of their independence are they willing to give up to be in relationship? So it from both angles. There's a sensing. Now, if I'm asking him to be more committed, and his kind of dynamic is to try to not be overly committed, there sets up this energetic thing. And I think that I came into awareness about